Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very inspiring show coming right up with special guest, Tracy Timm. And she's here today to share with us her new book, Unstoppable. Discover your true value, define your genius zone, and drive your dream career. Now, do you feel trapped in your career and feel it's time to reinvent your life? At the age of 25, Tracy Timm experienced a crisis of identity. She had a life that many would envy, but was plagued by the guilt that she was deeply unhappy with her career. After years of soul-searching and human capital advisory work, she turned everything around. Now, many of you know Tracy. She's the founder of Nth Degree Career Academy, the proven career clarity system that helps high-potential professionals discover, define, and drive the careers they love. She has a degree in behavioral psychology from Yale University and studied design thinking with the founder of the D School at Stanford University. So let's welcome to the show, Tracy Timm.
Thanks, Marianne. I'm super excited to be here. We're going to have a lot of fun.
Oh my goodness. What an honor it is to have you here and to talk about your new book. I have to ask you, what inspired you to write this book?
Oh my goodness. So if you talk to any author, I think if you know what it takes to make a book, right? And all the work that goes into it and the time and the thought, I think truly the answer can only be, it had to come out. It was this message that I wanted to give to the world in a much more expansive way than teaching it one person at a time through our career clarity programs. So I've had on my heart to write a book for a long, long time. I did not expect that this would be my first one. But I'm so proud of it because of all the years of work and the number of people who we've coached that went into finally the writing of this methodology, of this process or recipe, if you will, for finding your ideal career and finally living that life that you're really inspired by and proud of professionally. So a little bit of my own story and then a lot of other people's stories are really what inspired this book.
Well, why don't you share a little bit about your story? Because I felt like your story is so profound and so many of us go through the exact same thing.
Oh, that's really thoughtful of you. Yeah. A lot of entrepreneurs will say this too. You kind of found a problem that you either wanted to solve for yourself or someone close to you. And then you thought, well, I can't be, or they can't be the only one with this problem. So in every way, as much as possible, I try to live and breathe, what our clients do. So my story is very much one of a lot of pain and suffering professionally. I was that kid who, I grew up, I'm 33 now. So I was 100% right in the middle of the millennial generation, super overscheduled, super, pressured to perform. And I performed. I was a performer. If you said get A's and that's winning, I got A's. If you said get first chair in band and that's winning, I got first chair. If you said, make varsity your freshman year in your sport, that's what I did. And that serves us really well, I think, when we're young and we're in school and success is linear. And it got me to an amazing college. I went to Yale. I studied psychology, which I loved. But then when I started to think about what was going on in the real world, after school and after your linear bar for success goes away, I had no earthly idea what I wanted to do with myself. I just remember thinking, I don't know if there's anything I can do for longer than like a couple months and not get bored of it, or want to go on to something different, or have, as a sustainable way to be successful. Because I've never been an office person. I've never been a desk person. I've always had a lot of energy and I like variety. So in the absence of a really strong sort of, I'll call it a North Star or clarity of what I did want to do, I fell into the trap of looking around at what everyone else was doing and allowed that to be my bar for success. So with a psychology degree and all of 2 classes in math in my entire college tenure, I ended up getting a job on Wall Street. And there I stayed for 2.5 years working on a trading floor and just becoming more and more miserable as time went on. I only found this quote very recently, but apparently Einstein said, everybody is a fish, or everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life feeling stupid. And because of a lack of clarity, of what I really wanted to do, for 2.5 years, I suffered through a job that other people were telling me was sort of the pinnacle of success. And it was really that experience that inspired leaving, trying to find what I love to do, stumbling across a couple steps that work, and then building them into a more comprehensive methodology. And all of that personal suffering and professional development is what is infused into that book today.
At what point when you were at your first job that you decided, okay, this is just not me. This is, there's
Oh
more out there and
man.
I'm missing something.
I had a handful. When you're going through, I think, anything that's really not perfectly resonating with you, I think I call these like waves of realization, right? There's one straw that allows you to realize like, wow, I'm really not happy here. But then of course we're like, well, I'm supposed to be happy here, so I've got to keep working at it, And then the next straw is maybe I'm not happy here and that's okay. But then of course your mind immediately goes, well, what am I going to do about it? And so you just sort of tamp it back down, right? So I would say that the culmination story of all the things that really over time were telling me this is not where you're supposed to be, you're not happy here, and there's something else you could be doing that might pay you just as well, but you actually might like, was I was taking a break one day. I was about 2 years into my job. I was taking a break with a friend of mine who was 1 year younger than me as an analyst. And we were outside walking around this terrace on the roof of our building. And we're just looking over the edge at kind of the surrounding landscape. And there was a little bridge that went over a creek that ran along next to the building. And that day they were doing construction on the bridge. Just random. I'd never seen them working on that bridge before. And I casually mentioned it to my friend just because it was the first different thing in our periphery for some time. And I'm not kidding you, Marianne. He literally became a new person. His eyes widened and he got really excited, and he just started gushing about construction and about engineering and bridges and cement and all the little things that go into rock formation and why you would do this in the winter and not the summer. And I had literally never seen this guy get excited about basically anything, let alone his job. And here he was gushing about a subject matter and a profession and an industry that he had a huge passion and interest in. And yet, what were we doing every single day? He was working on spreadsheets and I was selling bonds and loans, and that was our life. And I just remember looking at him and frankly being really angry, because the thing that was keeping me in the job that I hated was that I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what my quote passion was or my purpose was. And it felt very daunting to look at those as very singular things and try to figure out my one passion or my one purpose, right? And here was this guy who was complaining just as much as me, but he knew what he wanted to do. He just wasn't doing it. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, if I can just find clarity, then I will run out of the front door. And I will help anybody else who wants to run out of the front door figure that out for themselves if I can figure it out for myself. But that was really the moment that the light bulb went off. And I remember thinking, wow, when was the last time I gushed about something? When was the last time I got excited about the work that I was doing? When was the last time I bragged to a friend or I came home excited to talk about my day? And the answer was never. And that was super enlightening. Yeah.
So, what made you kind of pivot then? Because there's so many people that don't like what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're not passionate about their work. So, how do they find like what really brings them joy?
Yeah, I think the first thing that we have to understand, and this takes so much of the pressure off of the process, is that the journey to your dream job is not singular, meaning you don't have just one passion or just one purpose. And in fact, we have, I think, many interests and passions and purposes over the span of our lives. So, what I like to help people do is if that's where you are in your life right now, if you're unhappy for any reason, you don't have to be miserable like I was, but if you're feeling this dissatisfaction, you're feeling like you're made for more, you're feeling like you have this latent awesome potential inside of you and you don't know where to unleash it, and maybe you're running in circles constantly, I think what we have to do is first and foremost root ourselves in the present and in reality. So get really clear on where you are in your life right now. In our career clarity process and program, we call this doing a life audit, and it's literally the very first step that we take with all of our clients after we help them with a little bit of mindset work. So it's all about, okay, what's going on in my life socially? What's going well and what could be improved? What's going on with me physically? What's going really well and what could be improved? What's going on in my environment? Where do I live? Who am I around? And what's going well and what could be improved? And I find that if you do that well, if you look at your life more objectively and you look at it in its totality, so not just focusing on your job and how much you hate your job and sort of writing everything else off, but focusing on everything, and getting really clear on where you are in each of those major areas of your life, then you can really see with much clearer lenses, hey, I've got this going for me, this going for me, and this going for me. And that's super positive. And that's going to help me get through these things that are not going well for me. It's almost like a nice foundation. And what you can see very clearly from what's missing is what actually matters to you. Because I think for any of us to get one step closer to knowing what we want to do, what brings us joy, what gets us excited to get out of bed, who we want to serve, how we want to serve them, is to know what we deeply value as a human being at this moment in our lives right now. So not what you aspire to 20 years from now, not what you cared about 20 years ago, but right now in your life, what gets you excited? Literally, like what moments in your life get you excited? Is it spending time with loved ones? Is it being around animals? Is it exploration and adventure? Is it feeling like you have a sense of belonging and groundedness and stability in where you live? Those things are going to highlight your core values, that which truly matters to you in life right now. And knowing your core values is the very first step on this process to gaining more clarity about where you want to be professionally, hands down.
My goodness, what an important thing. It's too bad they don't teach this in
Oh,
school.
preach,
'Cause-
preach.
yeah, because they come in, you all of a sudden your parents are like, "Hey, so what are you going to do?" And you're like, "I have no idea."
You don't even know what matters to you, right? You don't know
Yeah.
anything about the world. You haven't had any experiences. But if you're in a job, even if you're 2, 5, 10 years into your professional life, you've learned some things about yourself, right? You've learned what you like and what you don't like, where you thrive, and what work is actually much harder for you to thrive doing. And again, there's so much more juice to this, right? We want to figure out what you're naturally gifted at, your personality and your strengths and your behaviors. And then we also want to figure out what you've learned from your education and your work experience. But all of that comes after you've identified that which is core to your being at this moment in your life. And the reason I'm so sort of I hammer this point home is that your now, we call this part of the process, figuring out your now. Where are you now? Is that your now is going to grow and evolve and change constantly. I mean, how many people, you and me included, have totally different value sets right now, January of 2021, than we did a year ago? And part of that was forced on us, and part of it was because we grew and evolved in a very short period of time through forces internal and external, right? And we have to honor that, I think, in a much more consistent way, in a much more routine way throughout our lives, so that at every turn, we're not just doing what we did last year just because it's routine and easy. We're honoring that we may have grown and changed, and that may mean we need to make some changes in our lives to be more in alignment.
One of the things you talk about in your book is the possibility mindset. And I
Yeah.
really felt that was so empowering. I'd love for you to share about that with our listeners.
Sure. I think one of the first things I was ever asked to speak about when I started speaking professionally was how to be open. And I remember thinking, what do you mean? Like, we have to teach people how to be open? And the answer is yes, because so many of us are living our lives based on the expectations and definitions that were given to us somewhere along the way that we have not questioned since then. So maybe it's what your parents did and that equals success. Or maybe it's what your best friend did and you always compare yourself to that person. And if you're not doing what they're doing, you're not a success. It's these little big life definitions that I think we move forward with that we don't question. And so, of course, if we're living in someone else's paradigm, we're always going to feel like we're not going to be successful, or there's no options for us, or we're living out of alignment. And so, the first thing that we have to prime is that idea of living in possibility, of not only being open to the myriad of opportunities that are out there in the world, but training our minds to be aware that there are other possibilities outside of that which we already know about, which may sound a little woo woo or whatever for people who are not super into the mindset piece of all this. But what the way the brain works is that we focus on what we are already thinking, and our brain likes to be right. So that means that as we experience the world, we run it through these pre-existing biases, and we just simply try to confirm them along the way, right? Nobody likes to be wrong. Nobody likes to be proven wrong. And certainly that's how our brain likes to function, to keep it comfortable, to keep it safe. So of course, that means we walk around life with blinders on, only experiencing the world in ways that confirm what we already believe. So in order to break that cycle, we really have to train our brain to see and perceive possibilities that we might not even know exist yet, which just requires this sense of openness and, like you said, sense of possibility of what could be without labeling it ahead of time. And I wish we had, hours to talk through this, because we could actually break down, how specifically to do this. But I think the little ways that you can train your brain on a day-to-day basis are just to push your thinking. So if you see the world one way, just ask yourself, is there another way to look at that? And if so, how would that change how I perceive work, how I perceive relationships, how I perceive my environment, how I perceive my social existence, anything that's going on in your life? It's those little brain trainings that are going to get you more and more into a sense of possibility over time. But as with anything, changing the way that we think and believe and see the world is not an overnight process. It takes time.
But it's something that can be done, and that's what I think is so
Mhm.
encouraging, because when you look at life full of possibilities, then different things open up around you. I mean, if
Mm.
we're just in our lane and not really looking at what's possible, I mean, there's a whole world out there.
Right. And isn't that so funny? It's like, so in psychology, there's this, it's called the Bader-Meinhof principle. And I'll tell you that I only know that because I had to look it up for the book. And basically what it says is that which you're already thinking about is going to be that much more readily perceived in your world around you. So anybody out there, this is true. Like if you've ever purchased a car, you probably do all this work, you do all this research, you pick the car you want, you pick the color, the interior, all the add-ons, yada, yada, yada. And you're like, this is my dream car and I designed it and it is just for me and it's unique and yada, yada. And then the minute you drive off the lot, you're like, oh my gosh, that person has this car. That person has this car. My neighbor has this car. And it was there the whole time. You just didn't see it. And this is what we teach our clients to do is people are really scared of narrowing their field of vision when it comes to their career possibilities. Everybody thinks that the logical thing to do is be really open to all opportunities and to any sort of ideas so that they don't miss anything. They're not too picky, right? They don't have their dream opportunity go by because they were super focused over here and they should have been much more open, right? But the opposite is true. The more focused you are and the more intentional you are with your thinking, and you're right, meaning you've done the work to narrow your field of vision in a positive way in what's actually going to serve you, then the more of those opportunities you're actually going to see. It's going to feel like if it was a snake, I would have bit you. It's going to feel like it's been right under your nose this whole time. And why didn't you see it? Well, you didn't see it because you weren't thinking about it. You weren't focused on it. You didn't have it in your brain as a possibility. And that's the game changer. You know what I mean? That's the game changer, where all of a sudden you've got 5 different job opportunities that have just appeared out of nowhere. Well, they were always there. We just weren't focused on them, right? And that's something that I really encourage people to embrace and think about, because it's so easy to go the quote logical route and just tell yourself, I've got to be open. I'm making a big change. Maybe I don't have experience in this area. I just want to get my foot in the door. No, you want to be hyper focused and hyper specific and narrow your field of vision so that when you're out there talking to people about it, when you're out there looking for job opportunities, we call this part of the process navigating your way to your ideal career, then you've got to have top of mind that which you want to pursue if you hope for those opportunities to come out of the clear blue sky, right? But it is a process, as you said, but it is possible.
Hey, I love that. I love the
I'm
possibilities.
trying, it's constant. It's a constant battle with your own mindset, right? To see possibility and to keep
Yeah.
believing and hoping, because life is not perfect and things don't always go the way that we wish they did or the way we expected them to. But the best we can do, I think, is be equipped with a process that helps us make the next right choice, the next best step. And that's all we can control, right? Clearly in the last year, that's what we've seen. All we can control is making our next best step forward. And the rest is not up to us.
Yeah. I mean, and a lot of times that's plenty. All that is just
Mm.
plenty, being able to do that. And it's interesting, when I was reading your book, you cover a lot of things I felt that were so empowering. When you're
Mm.
working with people, what are one of the things that you often see people just get stuck in?
Oh boy. There are a handful, because at the end of the day, our careers are so tied up into our identities as human beings, right? What's the first question most people ask you when they meet you for the first time? It's like, what's your name and what do you do?
Yeah.
Right? And immediately that you're being judged, right? Is what you do interesting? Is what you do fancy? Is what you do whatever that person's set of biases are, right? This is why I hate that question when I'm networking. I almost never ask it. And if I ask it, I usually ask, what do you do for work? Not just what do you do, meaning I'm labeling you as a X, Y, and Z, right? So I think people get stuck in many parts of this process, but first and foremost, they get stuck on worrying about or overvaluing the opinions of others and what they choose to do with their lives. I know so many great people who could be adding massive value in different industries, maybe even in nonprofit, in public or private sector, and wherever, but they're stuck where they are because the thought of deviating from everybody else's expectations is terrifying. And frankly, I think it's built into their own psyche, right? Like the thought of deviating from your own expectations is scary. I graduated from Yale. I had a six-figure job when I was 22 years old and I was miserable. And I remember looking around and being like, I'm supposed to like this. Somebody would die for this job. And I hate it. What's wrong with me? You know what I mean? I was looking
Yeah.
internally and going, where did I screw this up? And where I screwed it up is that I set myself up for failure. I didn't want a desk job. I don't want to work with numbers. I'm a people person. I had to sit in a chair, Marianne, for 12 hours a day, seated. Like this was pre-standing desks, right? So I'm a lifelong athlete and I move and I'm active and I'm kind of like a bit of a nomad and I love people. I studied psychology. I literally set myself up for failure. Like one of these things is not like the other. And it took a while for that to be okay. I think that's the biggest hurdle for everybody is mentally getting over the fact that whatever you choose to do is okay. And if people don't like it, that's okay. If it gives you joy and fills you up and it's sustainable and it allows you to have an impact in the world and even come close to maximizing your fullest potential and you can get paid doing it, who cares? Like, who cares
Yeah.
what other people think? But I'll tell you what, I was on this path and starting my business. And one of my best girlfriends, God love her big heart, she came to me and she's like, I'm scared for you. I'm scared for you. I don't understand what you're doing. And I don't know if you understand what you're doing. And I can't let you just keep going down this road without saying something. I'm nervous for you. And I remember being so pissed off because I was like, I'm scared too. Like I don't know what I'm doing, but I know that this is in alignment. I know that I'm going down a road that is so much more in alignment with my values and my heart and my beliefs than what I was doing before. And I just need your support. I just need you to say, you're scared, I'm scared, but I'm going to walk with you down this road. I'm going to be there for you if you crash and burn. I'm going to be there for you if it's a success. And now 6 or 7 years later, she's one of my biggest cheerleaders. She's like, you were right, I was wrong, but it doesn't even have to be right and wrong. It just has to be that you don't allow other people's fears and biases and expectations to dictate your choices and your actions. But that's a big girl, big boy, put on your pants, kind of decision, right? It's scary because we're hardwired for community, and we're hardwired to make decisions that keep us within that community. I mean, that's how we survived early on, right? If you look at evolutionary psychology and biology, it's like you had your tribe, you stayed safe because you were in the tribe. And so you didn't do anything that would put you on the outs with the tribe, right? Otherwise you were facing a saber-toothed tiger alone and not with your tribe. And you had a much better chance of dying. So like that's our hard wiring. That's the reason we don't want to deviate. It's not because we're chickens. It's because deep down we're worried that not belonging is tantamount to not being safe, right? And not being secure. But as Elizabeth Gilbert says in her book, she's like, it's no longer you're running from a saber-toothed tiger. You're just sitting down to write a poem. It's the same fear mechanism, but it's misguided. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's a great example of that's exactly how it feels when you're putting yourself out there. Writing this book, I've trained myself now over 6 or 7 years to be kind of an open book, but I'll tell you what, I just got my first, I had a bunch of people write Amazon reviews, and 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars. And I just checked it yesterday, and there's 1 4-star review, and it's crushing me. I'm like, I worked so hard on this. I put myself out there. Like, what do you mean you don't love it? What do you mean they're not gushing about it? And 4 stars is not, this is the worst thing I've ever read. But what if it had been, this is the worst thing I ever read? This won't help anybody. That hurts. That's a scary thing. But we can't let that one voice, that one naysayer, or those 5 voices, those 5 naysayers keep us from living our truth and pursuing our purpose. Otherwise they win.
Yeah. And really, I mean, you can't let fear hold us back from what we really truly love to do. There's always going to be somebody in the crowd saying, well, I don't really like this, or this isn't really my thing. Mm-hmm. And that's okay, because that means you're growing beyond the space of people who, typically would be part of your tribe. You're in somebody else's tribe, probably.
Exactly. I think that's a really great point you make, Marianne, is that you can find great like-minded people almost anywhere. You just have to look, and they will find you when you're living authentically. They will find you. I mean, I have people reach out to me all the time where I'm like, oh my God, this is a soul person. Like we vibe on the same level, and they found me because of what I'm putting out into the world. And if I were holding that in, we would never have crossed paths, and that would be sad. You know what I mean? So I think that you're right. As you're making steps forward in this process, it can feel lonely, it can feel isolating, but I want to encourage people that I haven't done any of this alone. I surround myself with really smart, like-minded people as much as humanly possible. So much so that I'm considering going back to school because I just miss that immersive environment. It's possible, and you will find those people, and they'll become the new family, the new support system that you're looking for to make the next level up and the next step forward. So I would encourage you, if you're thinking this is really lonely and isolating work, nobody's going to understand you, nobody's going to support me, there will be a group of people who will become your tribe, for lack of a better term. And you'll love it because you're going to be surrounded by people smarter than you, people who are like-minded, people who are challenging the status quo. And that's what's going to give you energy and give you life way more than living by somebody else's definition of success.
Yeah. And sometimes, the people that we've had in once, we're in one situation where we are connected with people, they may fall away. We may develop better people who resonate with our overall life and message. It just kind of is a natural process, I think.
Yeah, and it's an important one. I mean, there's a lot to be said about the people that we spend the majority of our time with and their influence on our lives. If you want to be an elite athlete, you're not going to stay in the minor leagues. You're going to push yourself and challenge yourself to compete against the best. And if you want work you love, you cannot stay surrounded by people who complain about what they do and never make any changes and hope that you're going to act any differently. I think it was Jim Rohn who said, you're a combination of the 5 people you spend the most time with. it's an overstatement a little bit, but it's so true that your environment and your social life is going to influence you in really powerful ways. So maybe ask yourself, like, who are those people? And are they helping me become better, or are they holding me back? And it's not mean, I don't think. I think it's very honest. And Marianne, at the end of the day, like, this is our one life. Like, are you going to let somebody else dictate it the entire time because you're afraid of what they're going to think or what they're going to say or hurting their feelings? Like, no. We're made for so much more. We're made for so much more. I just want to encourage people that at the end of the day, this book and these ideas, they may sound like, oh, Tracy in the ivory tower of teaching can say these things. I live this every day. I'm confused all the time, just like you. And, but I truly believe that we're here for a reason. I believe that our careers are a way that we can make our sort of God-given impact on the world if we want to. And so if that desire is in your heart, these are the steps it's going to take. These are the risks you're going to have to take, quote unquote. These are the challenges you're going to have to face. And it may be scary, but I'll tell you what, there's a whole group of people out here like me and Marianne who are like, jump, it's great. We'll catch you, and we can fall on our faces together. And we, it's so worth it, I think, to pursue what could be your purpose and your impact through your work, if that's on your heart to do. And it makes taking these risks and reevaluating our relationships that much easier when we're doing it for a real purpose and a good reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting when you dive into what brings somebody joy. And my goodness, Tracy, I mean, we could talk all day on this
I wish. I know.
topic.
I wish we could. You have such a beautiful voice, by the way. I just could
Aw.
listen to you falling asleep. I feel like it's you're in your element, girlfriend.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Where can our listeners connect with you and learn more about Unstoppable and be part of your community, or people who just are like, hey, I need someone to coach me through all this? Where do they connect with you?
Yes. So the name of our program is the Nth Degree. We call our business the Nth Degree Career Academy. So we're helping everybody from, the Tracys of the world who are overwhelmed and stuck to, we have clients who are like, I know I'm made for more. I want to level up. We have clients who are soul searchers. We have clients who want to live a life of service, but they want to make good money at the same time. If that's you and you're trying to find your purpose in your career right now and a way to consistently reevaluate and evolve and level up as you go, that's what we do. That's what's on my heart to help people do. So if you go to nth degree, nthdegree.tracytimm.com, Tracy Timm is my name, so we put those two together. You can find a ton of resources there, including ways to get on our email list so you get constant updates from me. We offer free 50-minute strategy or clarity calls with our potential clients to talk about what we do, to learn more about their journey. You can book one of those calls on that website, nthdegree.tracytimm.com. And then if you want to get in touch with me personally, I am super open to that. I love hearing from people, but I don't do social media. I stink at it. So I live almost exclusively on LinkedIn. So if you come on LinkedIn and you just search Tracy Timm, TracyTimm, or the Nth Degree, you will find me and we can connect there. And I would love to hear your story, hear more about your journey, get on a call with you, get you on a call with one of our teammates, and really start talking about making steps forward in this area of your life.
Oh, how important is that? Well, Tracy, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thanks, Marianne. Thank you for the offer. Thank you for reaching out and being so supportive of this book. It's so important, I think, for people to take at least one step forward. And if that's buying a $15 book, huzzah, that's great. It takes people like you with your incredible, platforms and audiences to really get things like this out into the world. So I appreciate you just as much. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Tracy. It has been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, Unstoppable. Again, if you'd like to connect with Tracy, you can at tracytimm.com for more information. Her book, Unstoppable, is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And if you don't see it on the shelf, ask for them to order it. And of course, it's available on Kindle. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.